Family, Vie Darling, the Cosmic Queen, into your intergalactic interpreter, and I am here to do an intergalactic crystal ball. I know it's been a while since I've done one of these. I got my ash because I was cleansing the energy. I'm like waiting for food to arrive. It's taking absolutely forever. I have no idea where it is, and I'm just getting super frustrated. So if I duck away or like you hear me munching, that's why. But we're doing an intergalactic crystal ball because I feel like I've been being called to do one specifically about Diddy, obviously Diddy and Drake, and like this whole like whatever the fuck is going on. And I've been feeling Lilith in my field really heavily, so I'm using my unsacred oracle from Lilith and Gomez, and you get It Is Real in reverse. So there are illusions. There are illusions that are up right now. And I also wanted to talk about like Justin Bieber. We're just gonna see where this takes us. It is real, lost, apocalypse in reverse. So I know that people, and whatever in reverse, I know that people want to act like this is all just a big distraction, but that's absolutely not what I get from it. What I want to say is this much. People don't seem to understand or even understand that people are not really getting that these people, one, Diddy's cartel, let's call it. Diddy's cartel is not separate from Epstein's. Like, everybody who was on, who, like, all of Diddy's friends, all of these, like, high profile, high ranking people are best friends with, they were all on, Epstein's list, the flight lists, okay? So this idea that it's like, oh, you know, Epstein was a fall guy, Diddy was a fall guy, they are at the bottom of the, not the bottom of the period, but they are being made to be like fall guys, as they were facilitators for all of this stuff that has been going on. But trust and believe that like all of these like groups are interconnected and interwoven. They are not operating, you know, separate from one another. So with this, if it's about like cutting the head off of the snake, or of like, you know, stabbing the hydra in the stomach instead of continuing to cut its head off. That's what it is about. The thing is though, like, they want us to all think that like the world is ending, like all this terrible stuff is happening, but that's not necessarily true. I say this all the time, like, it's not ending, it's being reborn. There's still stuff that's being hidden behind the scenes though. There's still stuff that's being hidden behind the scenes. And I feel like Diddy's, his team, they're scrambling because the K family, the Kardashian family, the K family, they are part of it. And they're really, really trying to do whatever they can to hide what connection they have to it. But it's all coming down. They've lost. They lost, and it's all coming, all of these little empires are coming crumbling down. these whore of Babylon covens and sects, they're all crumbling down. And men can be whores too. So I'm getting like concubines. Somebody like Drake, for instance, is a whore of Babylon. Okay, that's what I'm picking up. Memento mori, remember you will die. These people are freaking out. They're scrambling. They're scrambling. They are terrified because they know that they're going to have to pay the piper for what they've done. And the sacrifices that they made, these people were sacrificing people like crazy, like you wouldn't even believe, dude. They were sacrificing people like left and right, willy-nilly, you might say. And they thought that they had a foolproof plan as to how they were going to get away with this. They thought that they had a foolproof plan as to how to get away with this. But they didn't see, what they didn't see you coming is what I'm hearing. They didn't see you coming. So in this case, it'd be like the Chosen One Collective. They didn't see the Chosen One Collective coming. All of their little dreams, all of their little plans, all of their little schemes, that's all coming crashing down. None of it is going to be able to stay. None of it is going to be able to work. And they are terrified. One thing I will say is that they know that a lot of people are not going to believe the demonic aspect of the things that they do. They're not going to believe, but they know that like public opinion is already going to turn against them for the like audacity of what they've done. And the thing is, with somebody, they take someone like Diddy, who is a black man at the end of the day, and like it is much easier to get the world to hate someone like him than to hate somebody like, let's say, a white man or someone that nobody knows. And when they find out who all is implicated in this, those people are going to go down as well. The Hierophant in reverse. Yep, they're losing their authority. They had some sort of power, but it wasn't authority. They had power in the 3D, but they didn't have... yeah, they had power in the 3D, but they didn't have authority to be doing the kinds of things that they were doing. You know what I mean? They were using demonic, satanic, or satanic witchcraft. Selling their souls and shit, doing like death magic, like just really doing fucked up stuff in the ethers. Four of Wands. I feel like right now the collective is really meant to be resting, because if you're trying to like, honestly, I feel like it's just kind of overwhelming. Like, we ought to be preparing for what is coming, because what is coming is like, it's going to be go time is what I'm hearing. Like, you don't actually have to be, yeah, 10 of Cups. Everything that they did, like, justice is being served, and everyone that they stole from, the families that of the people that they sacrificed, all of that kind of stuff, like, that is, those people are getting justice. They're getting justice because now the Chosen Collective were able to wield our power. Because what they didn't know is all of that magic that they were throwing, all of that theft that they were doing was just making us stronger and preparing us for the times to come. At the end of the day, this was always like fated to happen. There was no way that they were ever going to be able to continue doing all of this, but they were so arrogant as to think that they could go up against God. And that's why what is happening is happening. Ace of Pentacles in the reverse position, Queen of Swords in the reverse position, Page of Pentacles, and the Fool in the reverse. The fact of, and the Lovers, just like I said, the Hermit in reverse, King of Pentacles. Just like I said, dude, like, they're not going to New Earth. They're not going anywhere. They're gonna pay the fucking piper for the shit that they've done. Period. So they're not going to be able to go to New Earth. This was never, ever going to last. But because they were so arrogant, they just, like, refused to stop. And this is the thing, like, some of them, like, these covens, like, sects of these covens, like, what I found out is, like, these people... So I know somebody who is like, they were, I don't know why, but they had like, they were mutuals with 𝗲𝗓𝗁 on his like, I don't know, like his Finsta or like fake Twitter or whatever. And like, he told me that he saw like photos of like him and like 𝗂𝗍 or whatever, like in white, doing like Ifa initiations or rituals or whatever. And so one thing that I downloaded was that like these people are using like Ifa, like traditional West African magics or mysticism, spirituality, in order to, like, they're using that magic to do the shit that they do. And so I saw a map of like in Miami where what's his name, Diddy lives, where Oprah lives, and where Star Island lives, or where Star Island is, and they're all like triangulated from one another, I guess you could say. And what I heard is that, I think I've already talked about this before, but basically there is a hellmouth in Atlanta. Atlanta was one of the vampiric capitals of the United States because it was a central hub for slavery, chattel slavery. And they would bring them there and like do all kinds of horrible, evil, wicked stuff there. Baltimore is another hellmouth. That is where the first bloodshed of the Civil War happened. And that is how they were able to tear a rip in the fabric of space-time to allow Shaitan to flood into this realm. So we at this point do have demonic infestation, Shaitanic infestation going on. And I've talked about this before, that these beings are, you know, being contracted out. They are not under the authority of the demonic shadow empire architects and engineers and, you know, what have you. They're actually, they are being contracted out, and that's why they have to make these sacrifices in order to pay the price to command these hordes. It's kind of like in The Lord of the Rings when Saruman is commanding an orc army, right? It's kind of like that. It's actually very different, but that is what I am picking up. And these, first of all, they have to, like, you have to understand, like, they are serving spirits you're serving like these energies that are, they are like voracious, they are insatiable, they are never satisfied, they are just like, I'm hearing hungry ghosts. And they're soul eaters because they don't have souls. Soul like the sun, okay? They're not connected to the light, which gives us life. They're not connected to the great central sun. They're not connected to any of these stars. They're just like dead in the water, basically. And I'm picking up disgusting. Just like these people are like dirty. Peace, family. So obviously I stopped the reading and started again because, yeah, they didn't deliver my food. Well, they did, and it was stolen. So, yeah. Anyway, point is, Uber Eats sucks. Lost $50 on that. And I will never, ever, God forbid, I ever fucking use Uber Eats again. Anyway, so like I was saying, one thing that I want to say before I even like go too far is, I don't know if any of y'all have ever seen the episode of American Dad where Steve starts working at a mall that is like closing down, and Roger is working there, and like there is this, like, he keeps talking about the owner of the mall, and the owner of the mall turns out to be like this, like, basically living dead sorcerer who's like hundreds if not thousands of years old. And when I was like channeling before I did this reading, that is what like I saw Robert Kardashian as, like Robert Kardashian Sr. Because yeah, when I was like making those TikToks about like how I actually did create content technically about Diddy and how corrupt he is and how dark and evil he is. That is what I started channeling, because I channeled about, in those I shared about how like those women are like a spicy worker of Babylon, which we say WOB here, the WOB cult. That's what they are. And so I do feel like people who worship them are people who are either like, they gravitate towards those lineages because of their own like indoctrination, or because, and like abuse that they may have experienced. Either way, their codes, like their DNA codes, are like magnetized towards that. And the reason is because during colonization, a lot of basically like indigenous lineages across the world were polluted. Like their gene pools were polluted with the colonizer DNA. And I'm not just talking about Europeans, because this happened first in Europe and then it happened globally. This happened from the off-worlders, okay, and these fallen sects. And oh my god, I just had like a sharp pain in like my sacral region and like my root region. That was like really uncomfortable. What the fuck? But yes, that is how they created aberrations in the DNA, through trauma, as well as through yeah, well, it's all trauma, right? By traumatizing people. But like, how did that happen? Through physical abuse and through indoctrination. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Oh my god, that hurt. Yeah, anyway, through trauma and through indoctrination, or like physical abuse and sexual abuse. And one thing that is super important for people to realize is like, okay, so these people are vampires, right? And what are vampires? Like, it's not like how you see in the movies or how you see in True Blood necessarily. It is that these people, either they are descended from fallen ones, or they have fallen DNA, or they are an energy vampire, which is to say that neither of these things are true, or they've like sold their soul. Neither of these things are true, but they like remove, they turned their heart light off, and they are quote unquote heartless, and so they don't have, like, they're behaving in a soulless way, they're inhumane. And the reason is because, like I said, soul, the French word for sun is soul, soleil actually, but I think the Latin word for sun is soul, S-O-L, and so we add U to it to make the word soul, right? Justice is coming in here for the collective. Justice is being served Sekhmet, Ma'at, Athena, and it is because of the spiritual evolution that's been going on. It is because of the, light, the shadow work that you've been doing to heal yourself. And you cannot effectively be a light worker if you are not also a shadow worker. That's not possible. Yeah, you can be like of the light or of the dark, but that neither, like, there is an evil feminine and there is an evil masculine. There's an evil light and there's an evil dark. Being dark does not mean that you are evil. Okay, like, it just means that, like, you are insular, instead of expressional, you know what I mean? And these cults, specifically the serpentine ones, like, specifically these ones, I will say, and they are descended from, like, fallen dragons, like fallen seraphim, because seraphim are dragons. They manifest as dragons. Those are the bodies that they choose. You get the Lovers in reverse. They basically try, I'm gonna stop shuffling and start, like, finish like one thought. So basically they are soulless, for one reason or another, or like they are very low on soul. And this is the reason, because the soul, the sun, is the giver of life, right? And like, when you're connected to the sun, you're connected to the living waters, because in this realm, like, when they talk about like rain and like water and stuff like that, yes, that is true, but they're actually also talking about like sunlight, and like the light, and those two things exist inextricably, because we live in a, like, the universe is actually made of light and water. Water can also be like talking about ether, but it's the spirit realm basically. So really, we live in, like, if you think about outer space, it's light, matter, and ether. Matter is carried on light, though. Matter is, light is a phenomenon because it's both a wave and a particle. And so the matter exists in the light. And if you think that, like, oh, matter, the material world is evil, quote unquote, because of the quote unquote demiurge, then that would mean that the light is evil because the matter is inside of the light. Okay? And all the light and the matter comes from the darkness. Everything's contained in the darkness. none of it is necessarily evil. It just is. But it really is about like what consciousness chooses to do with it. And you don't have to choose to do evil things. A lot of us choose to do just do. And you know, what really matters, what's really important is that you're making conscious decisions. That's what matters. Making conscious decisions is what brings you out of being asleep, which brings you out of darkness, which brings you out of ignorance and therefore out of the realm of being able to be controlled and into sovereignty. Okay, and I want to say this much. This is what they try to take from us, is our sovereignty. And the only way that we can receive justice is by reclaiming our sovereignty, by sitting in our power, by claiming our, like being accountable, like claiming our power, claiming, you know, being okay with having to be responsible. I am responsible for my own actions. Whether or not I want to be, it doesn't fucking matter. This is the laws of the universe. You're gonna be regardless of what you want. So you may as well just like, live in that truth and be accountable and stop creating bad karma for yourself. But people are so brainwashed by these plutocrats, these powers and principalities. And this is what I'm going to tell you. Powers and principalities are actually tiers of angels. And we've talked about this before on here. Powers and principalities are actually tiers of angels. And they are, they're dangerous for sure. Okay. Let me look up I always just like prefer to have the exact verbiage. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against rulers of darkness in this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. And when they're talking about high places, they're actually talking about higher realms of consciousness, above materiality. I've said this so many times, and this is really crucial to understand, especially if you want to be a master co-creator, or as y'all might say, a master manifester. You have to understand that the 3D world, the material world, is like, that is basic. That's the last frontier, the final frontier. Everything happens in the unseen before it materializes in the 3D world. And yes, we can have effect on the 3D world in order to like affect the unseen. But listen, 3D, out of all of the dimensions that exist, that's just 1D, 2D, 3D. There are infinite dimensions. The fallen ones existed at higher dimensions. And I'm going to pull up, actually, I think I've shared this. But I don't know. The rankings of the angels. Yeah, so basically angels, archangels, and then principalities are the third triad. They interact and serve humanity closely. And then the second triad fulfill God's plan in the universe, dominions, virtues, and powers. Principalities are second only to it goes angels, archangels, principalities, powers, virtues, dominions. Then the first triad, which are thrones, cherubim, and seraphim, contemplate and adore God directly. And so the first triad, they're the closest to God. And then, like, basically you also have to understand that angels are the deities of Abrahamic religion. So these are different rankings of angels are different rankings of deities. They are differently ranked. And we could say that angels are perhaps like they have the lowest ranking and seraphim have the highest ranking. So principalities are third ranking, powers are fourth ranking. Out of 9 here, we see 9. Okay. And the powers are the lowest ranking of the second triad, but principalities are the highest ranking of the first triad. And I guess that they work together. So if you're operating from 3-dimensional consciousness, you're not even on this scale. And that's humans, basically, where they're supposed to be. But because of the manipulation and the spiritual and consciousness abuse that they experience from these fallen ones, they're operating in 2-dimensional consciousness, binary opposition. And that is how, because they are fallen, they fall to the 2D. That's where they have fallen. And they are fallen to the second dimension. And what was done, apparently, according to the story, I believe it was Iblis and or Lucifer who who fell to the second dimension and basically began to govern, or the third dimension is what I'm picking up. Anyway, they fell. They weren't allowed to come back up to heaven. Basically, they had to stay in the 3D, which makes sense because of their karma. But sometimes you fall so badly that you get put down to 2D. And I think that that is honestly like what happened, but not immediately. Either way, they fell so badly down to 2D, but not before instituting, like doing all kinds of wickedness. And that's part of why they fell. But, you know, then they did more wickedness and they fell down to 2D. And so they bandied all of the jinn, the shaitanic jinn. Shaitan means adversary. So the shaitanic jinn, shaitan is the group of jinn that are non-believing. Okay, and that is where the word Satan comes from. So people will be like, oh, Satan is Samael or Soklis or like whatever. No, actually it's not. Satan is the horde of non-believing jinn, the adversarial jinn, the rebellious jinn. And they were rallied behind a leader who obviously was higher ranking than them. Iblis, maybe Lucifer. Lucifer and Satan are not the same. This is another misconception. And so, yeah, basically that's what happened. And they can't manifest in bodies. They have to possess people. They have to use vessels to make things happen. If they get enough energy, they can maybe knock something down. You know, that's when you have a poltergeist. But basically, and the poltergeist gets the energy because of, like, we are giving them power subconsciously. And that's part of why it's so important to be a conscious person. But basically, these, they want to keep people in 2-dimensional consciousness, which is like devolving people, not just keeping them stuck at 3D, but devolving them so that they can manifest inside of them. And this is what is really important to understand, because This is why binary opposition is so bad, and you need to strive for fourth dimensional consciousness, which is Christ consciousness, which is unconditional love and unconditional truth. And no, as a human being, we're in the 3D. That's where we physically are like incarnating. So we're not always going to hit the mark. We're going to miss the mark sometimes. That is understood. You know what I mean? Like, the Most High understands that. The Most High knows that. You know what I mean? Not to give the Most High like anthropomorphic like human characteristics or anything like that, but like spirit knows that we're not always gonna make, like, we're sometimes gonna miss the mark. You know what I mean? And that's okay, because, you know, God loves us anyway. God loves us enough to give us the opportunity to atone. You know, if we weren't loved, then we would make a mistake and we would just have to live with that mistake forever and like just suffer, you know, and stay in the karmic cycle forever. But that's not the case, you know. And more than even the opportunity to atone, the opportunity for absolution is the fact that like we actually, like, we know about it. You know, it is a common aspect of many different, you know, spiritual practices the world over. It's not taught in like Protestantism. I don't even think it's taught in Catholicism. I don't know. I grew up Methodist, so I know this much like from being in it, but also in my studies, I don't believe that it's taught in Christianity at all, because the idea is like, oh, well, you know, Jesus died for our sins, so we don't have to do any, we just have to like pray and, you know, count the rosary or whatever. And no, that's not how it works, actually. Like, absolution is taught in, which is actually like biblical. I believe it's in Deuteronomy, but like it's in Judaism, it's in 𝗂𝗲, it's in, which is like the ancient and ancestral spirituality of West Africa. In certain countries, some countries, especially the French-speaking ones, you know, have Poro and Sunday, but 𝗂𝗲, you know, is like the backbone of that, those spiritual practices. Absolution is a normal part of indigenous societies, you know, the practice of seeking atonement. And I think that that is part of what 𝗂𝗪 is actually about. I'm pretty sure it is. And I don't know, it's been a while since like I studied Judaism very deeply, but this is what I learned directly from Rabbi Danya Ruttenberg, and it was life-changing for me, because essentially it's like, you know, you seek forgiveness for the transgression that you've done, and you do whatever it is that you have to do, which is, I mean, this is also like karma, you know, and seeking moksha. You do whatever you have to do to right the scales of justice, and then you get free. It doesn't matter. Like, if you've done the thing that you've apologized, you've asked for forgiveness, you've offered earnestly to do what needs to be done in order to atone for what you did, to right the scales of justice, to make things right and bring balance once again. And whether or not the human says they forgive you or not, you're forgiven in the eyes of God. That's the point. You know what I mean? So sometimes it's like they're not going to even want to talk to you. They're not willing to forgive, but God is. And you can just stop doing the things that you did and find a way to make it right. You should just pray about it, really. Or like go to whatever spiritual leader that you work with and like talk to them and see like what it is you have to do. But I can guarantee you that counting the rosary is not going to be enough. That's not going to be enough to absolve causing harm. Okay? Because what does that do for the person that you harmed? Nothing. And what does it really do for you? If you think about it, the point is to change as a person and stop doing wickedness. So I say this all to say, yeah, binary opposition. What was I talking about? Absolution. Yeah, God loves us enough to offer us the ability to atone and get free of our karma. We have the ability to experience moksha, which is liberation from suffering. As long as you're carrying around the burden of your transgression, you will be suffering. You don't have to suffer in life. You can actually live heaven on earth here. Liberation from the bondage of self. This is the World card in the traditional tarot. You can experience that here, but you can only experience that here on earth while you're incarnate if you practice atonement. And this makes sense that we're talking about this now because it is that time of year. So, you know, I think that part of why the scales are why the world is so imbalanced is because not enough people, like humanity has a tremendous debt of karma because people they're not pursuing atonement, they're not pursuing absolution, and they're just living with this. And so the suffering perpetuates microcosmically for the individual and macrocosmically for the collective. And this is something that, like, you know, it's gotta be put to rest. It's gotta stop at some point. It has to. But for those, you know, as I spoke about, like New Earth, justice is happening whether or not we want it to. And some people, they're just not even going to make it. But other people, you know, they're going to keep being offered the opportunity to experience absolution. And this is what's happening because the suffering for humanity, like the transgressions of humanity, are great. The suffering in order to get into alignment is unfortunately great. And this is just the balancing of scales. I made a prophecy about 2 years ago. I think it was actually last year, if I'm remembering correctly, that like this is on the Aetherium Instagram, that there would be a lot of, yes, in a live reading, I did this. There would be a lot of people, you know, passing away, but this is okay, and we shouldn't worry about it because they are getting free, and honestly, it's going to be better off for them. And I guess that's what's happening now, but it's like, you know, we're only human, and like it's still fucking terrible, but they're finding new life in death and freedom from the suffering, I guess. It's hard to talk about this, but that's just what it is, you know what I mean? And I think I'll like talk about that more in some other reading, but for now I think that that's a good place to like leave that. They wanted, what also people do, and like the message that I downloaded is that back in 2023 is that Diddy is a vessel for 𝗂𝗄𝗄𝗂. 𝗂𝗄𝗄𝗂 is bound to him, in fact. And I get the sense that like he's the main one that he's bound to. And the reason is because he has DNA, sub-Saharan African DNA. And this is actually what I was channeling about when I started. I'll share these slides somewhere. But this is actually what I was channeling about when I channeled that he was this vessel for this being. Yeah, him being like a vessel for these fallen ones, and why that is such a big revelation and why that is such a big deal is because essentially what I downloaded is that, you know, sub-Saharan African DNA. Why don't I go ahead and read to you what I downloaded directly? Like I said, it's in the archive of my Aetherium Instagram because it was in the stories, but I definitely want to, and let me just, yeah, I mean, one thing at a time, right? So there are certain types of magics that can only be done by sub-Saharan African people of sub-Saharan African descent. That means that SSA DNA is necessary in order to do whatever magics are being done, because it is only in the DNA of SSA people. When you understand this, when you comprehend this rather, within the context of history and occultism, you understand why the free 33 Masons, let's call them the Bell-jars and like Bell-jar coven. You understand why the Bell-jar coven chose and still chose to exploit black bodies for certain purposes. The black celebrities that people think are part of the let's call false light, are part of the false light, would never be given the kind of power the white power brokers have. They were the power brokers. They were the power brokers. Spirits are saying that time is over now. But they made deals with the black, some call it boule, parallel of the group, the false light coven, but wouldn't allow them on their quote-unquote tier. Essentially, even if they had the same material status in this world, they would still always be treated like N-words. But these black folks who had powerful blood magics were willing to sell their bodies, read vessels, temples, for that kind of power, quote-unquote. Power is not authority. 𝗪𝗪 𝗪𝗪 talks about this. Power is not authority. Just because you can do something doesn't mean that you're allowed to or that you should do something. So comprehend that, understand that because some people can do certain magics, others can't. People of different lineages are used for different things, and it's all evil. But sometimes they're willing to do it because they feel like they have to. It's the only way, or because they're so insanely depraved. That is somebody like Diddy. This is what I was downloading that led me to that. 2244 was on the clock when I wrote this. And this was the 21st of June, 2023. If you think about the biggest black celebrities, they all have done unsacred things to get where they are now. That may not have been intentional because a lot of them don't even know what they're doing, magically speaking, but in the mundane sense, it's still not okay. You know what I mean? Like, participating in sex trafficking is not okay. All right? Like, at all. And being complicit, enabling it in any capacity is not okay at all. You don't have to be the one procuring the people, like trafficking them, you know, holding them hostage and stuff like this. But if you are supporting it, or if you know that it's going on and you're not doing anything about it, or you're just like being okay with it, because sometimes you can't do anything really, like, but you can remove yourself. For instance, 𝗂𝗃 was like, when he found out what Diddy did to his relative, who was Diddy's intern for a while, he never spoke to Diddy again and like stopped engaging with him completely. You know what I mean? Because he understood that he wouldn't be able to take Diddy down at that time. He made a really great TikTok in which he explained, like, would you have even believed me if I came forward with this? No. So like, you know, don't blame the victim. But I say this all to say, like, there is always something that you can do to get away from these kinds of like people or these kinds of characters. And what I would really recommend to you to do is to, yeah, at the very least, absolutely cut ties with them, cut cords, remove yourself from being around them 100%. But yeah, many of them do not even believe in magics or any of this, so they think nothing of it. A lot of these people are like colonizer Christians, so they think that they're Christians, and I don't know why they think that it's okay to like be getting like completely inebriated if you're a Christian and you're defiling your temple like that. Like, I don't understand why you think that that is okay. And just doing things that like go against your religion. I don't identify as like any religion. I don't identify with religion. I don't identify with the institution. So I don't really, but I grew up in it, and I do feel like I can say, as someone who grew up in it, like, most people who claim to be Christian, they do not live in Christian principles whatsoever. They're some of the most hateful people, you know what I mean? Like, judgmental, all that good stuff. And it's like, you say that Christ is your Lord and Savior, but you don't do anything to live like Christ. So that's wild to me. But anyway, these people, they're always the ones who think like, oh, like, I don't believe, like, excuse me for a second, because I need to do a binding right now. In the name of the Most High Divine Creator, by my authority in all densities, dimensions, and directions of all of quantum space-time, I bind you, your maker, your kin, and your collective, from causing harm, instilling fear, taking baneful action, or committing any acts of violence against me and the collective. I shut down all of your nervous systems, your sensory capabilities, and your mental cognitions, and command that you all return to the Most High Divine Creator immediately and as swiftly as possible, never to return. I cancel and shut down, dissolve, disintegrate, and destroy all your harmful, malevolent, baneful workings, craftings, plans, creations, machinations, and anything of the like in all densities, dimensions, and directions of all of quantum space-time, rendering them extinct. I purify any and everything that has ever been touched or affected by you, all in all dimensions, densities, and directions. And the Holy Spirit, the living waters, golden white Christ light, Sophionic dragon fire, violet flame of Saint Germain, heavenly fire, and the diamond sun. I release, dissolve, disintegrate, and completely destroy any and all connections, tethers, relations, ties, binds, combinations, amalgamations, enmeshments, and anything of the like connecting me and the collective to any and all of these energies, entities, and expressions of existence, their kin, their collective, and their maker. I call all of my power and all of my energy back to me and purify it in the Holy Spirit across all of quantum space-time, declaring my divine, sacred, holy sovereignty over my spirit, my mind, my energy, my emotions, my actions, my communications, my expressions, my thoughts, my feelings, and my vessel. By my authority and in the name of the Most High Divine Creator, I do the same for the collective. With unconditional love, light, truth, ease, grace, gentleness, and compassion, I purge and purify all portals, entry points, three ways, and forms through which you, your kin, your collective, your maker have been able to manifest through with the Holy Spirit, the living waters, golden, white, Christ light, great central sunlight, Sophionic dragon fire, violet flame of Saint Germain, heavenly fire, and the diamond sun plasma. I coat these spaces with selenite and crystal quartz, black tourmaline, jet, onyx, obsidian, hematite, smoky quartz, rainbow hematite, red jasper, carnelian, red aventurine, bloodstone, and cherry tangerine, citrine, 𝗪𝗪, amethyst, amber, howlite, rose quartz, rhodochrosite, rhodonite, amethyst, lapis lazuli, serpentine, celestite, blue lace agate, angel aura, amethyst, clear quartz, and rose quartz, as well as opal and sugilite. I charge these all in the Holy Spirit, golden white Christ light, great central sunlight, and diamond sunlight, as well as diamond sun plasma. In the name of the Most High Divine Creator, by my authority in all densities, dimensions, and directions of all of quantum space-time, I bind you, your maker, your kin, and your collective, from causing harm, instilling fear, taking baneful action, or committing any acts of violence against me and the collective. I shut down all of your nervous systems, your sensory capabilities, and your mental cognitions, and command that you all return to the Most High Divine Creator immediately and as swiftly as possible, never to return. I cancel and shut down, dissolve, disintegrate, and destroy all of your harmful, malevolent, baneful workings, craftings, plans, creations, machinations, and anything of the like in all densities, dimensions, and directions of all of quantum space-time, rendering them extinct. I purify any and everything that has ever been touched or affected by you, all in all dimensions, densities, and directions in the Holy Spirit, the living waters, golden white Christ light, Sophionic dragon fire, violet flame of Saint Germain, heavenly fire, and the diamond sun. I release release, dissolve, disintegrate, and completely destroy any and all connections, tethers, relations, ties, binds, combinations, amalgamations, enmeshments, and anything of the like, connecting me and the collective to any and all of these energies, entities, and expressions of existence, their kin, their collective, and their maker. I call all of my power and all of my energy back to me and purified in the Holy Spirit across all of quantum space-time, declaring my divine, sacred, holy sovereignty over my mind, my spirit, my energy, my emotions, my actions, my communications, my expressions, my thoughts, my feelings, and my vessel. By my authority in the name of the Most High Divine Creator, I do the same for the collective. With unconditional love, light, truth, ease, grace, gentleness, and compassion, I purge and purify all portals, entry points, through ways and forms through which you, your collective, your kin, and your maker have been able to manifest through with the Holy Spirit, the living waters. Golden white, Christ light, great central sunlight, 𝗪𝗪 dragon fire, violet flame of Saint Germain, heavenly fire, and the diamond sun plasma. I coat these spaces with selenite and crystal quartz, black tourmaline, jet, onyx, obsidian, hematite, smoky quartz, rainbow hematite, red jasper, carnelian, red aventurine, bloodstone, and cherry tangerine, citrine, azeztulite, amethyst, amber, howlite, rose quartz, rhodochrosite, rhodonite, amethyst, lapis lazuli, serpentine, celestite, blue lace agate, angel aura, amethyst, clear quartz, and rose quartz, as well as opal and sugarite. I charge these all in the Holy Spirit, golden light, Christ light, great central sunlight, and diamond sunlight, as well as diamond sun plasma. I create a direct channel to the fountain of life and flood this space with the living waters. I fill it with mana from heaven, as well as diamond sun plasma and the Holy Spirit. And I seal it in God's name with gold, platinum, and diamond, charging it with the name of the Most High Divine Creator in all dimensions, densities, and directions of all of quantum space-time. May you all be restored to Eden frequency in the Divine's holy vision. May seraphim and cherubim guard these precious regions with their lives. I make all of these decorations inside, outside, and across all of quantum space-time in all directions, dimensions, and densities, and in all quantum timelines, holistically and completely in the name of the Most High Divine Creator, now, forever, and always. So have I spoken, and by my authority, so shall it be. In the name of the Most High Divine Creator, so it is. Asha. I had to pause, and I had to do that because, yeah, it was necessary. And I am sure y'all understand. I'm sure you get it. I need water because my throat chakra is just like going a little bit crazy, and I'm also gonna have some oil of oregano, and I encourage y'all to do the same if you can. It's cold and flu season, and we're purging so much. People were really getting sick. So yeah, anyway, we're purging so much, and like when I do these, oftentimes by the end I can barely like sing, and my throat's usually really dry, and like there's a lot of discharge, I guess you could say, because we are purging. While I'm speaking as the oracle, I'm purging this crap. So yeah, anyway, this is good. Yeah, so yeah, Diddy being this, let me see about this. The cat is like trying to come in through this window. He's like waiting for me to open the window, but I'm not opening it. Because the door is open for him to go through, and I don't want him to come in here. I think he may have like tried to come in here through the door, but like found that he couldn't get in. And like the room that I'm in, I don't want him to come into the room that I'm in. And like he's like trying to get me to let him in through the window, and he's just staring at me. It's so weird. Because I'm not gonna let him in. But anyway, so yeah, I was reading about the DNA. Many of them don't even believe in magics or any of this. Oops. I have to pull it back up. Here you see. Many of them don't even believe in magics or any of this, so they think nothing of it because they're indoctrinated into the vampiric cult that is institutional Christianity. Many, they don't even know what they're doing. Then they are mounted by spirits or being used as vessels in fucked up ways. Or they're going through it and don't even realize it. Like, they're going through it as in they're going through the rituals and initiations and they don't even realize it. This is also true for non-Black celebrities, but to a different extent. And I do think that to some degree, like, because like certain rituals are normalized within institutional Christianity, or they're just normalized in culture in whatever capacity, that people are just like, oh, yeah, it's like totally normal. And it's like, no, it's not. This is also true for non-Black celebrities, but to a different extent, because like I said, the DNA is like critical, and you know, it's like people just assume that all African ancestral spiritual practices are all the same, and it's like, no, they're not. They're actually not all the same. Like, even in West Africa, like Ghana and Nigeria and like the countries that were colonized by England, they don't have 𝗵𝗄 society, they don't have Sunday society, but the countries that were colonized by France as well as Liberia, we do. And that's because like our tribes have that, and that tribal history is erased, and like the cultural identities are flattened, and it's just really like it's important to understand that like this is why bloodline is so important in esoteric mysticism, and people just really don't want to accept that. People really don't, but it matters greatly. It matters vastly, because your family's magics is not going to necessarily be the same as my family's magics, based on like your lineage, your spiritual inheritance, all of this kind of stuff, you know? Like, your potion is different from my potion, and certain magics, only people with this specific potion, like the codes that are in those the codes that they have, can only do that. There's a reason for that. Some people go along with it. Some people feel like, if I had to go through it, then so do you, while some others want to tear it down. Part of what they go through is stuff that no other people can go through because of their lineages. But to be clear, they will use different lineages in different ways. They might use descendants of the Druids in different ways, descendants of the Mayans in different ways. But it's important to know who the keepers of those lineages were, and if they were as proactive about obfuscating their ancestral codes or not. And a lot weren't, because they didn't even know how. What's coming up very powerfully to me is Katy Perry going through her mental illness stuff. Not everyone is experiencing just mental illness. One thing they definitely do is crack people's brains with MK Ultra programming, and this is quote unquote in the water. like it's in the ethers, because it's disseminated throughout all media. They create media that perverts the mind, body, and spirit, and then they exploit celebrities. And part of the reason that they do this is because like the celebrities who have specific codes, like especially like crystalline codes, celebrities like Katy Perry, celebrities like Britney Spears, celebrities like Justin Bieber, celebrities like Kanye West, for instance. This is why these people keep being talked about within, because there is a battle between the dark and light, and these specific people are targeted this specific way to indoctrinate them so that they will use their crystalline codes. You know what I mean? Not everybody is crystalline, not everybody is an earth angel, not everybody is a mermaid, not everybody is an ethereal being, not everybody is all the same. You have to understand that not everybody is a dragon or a dragon rider. Okay, so the people who are, they use their codes, they use their magics, and in order for them to spread and indoctrinate, spread the doctrine basically, in ways that nobody else can do. That's the way that they exploit them, and so they crack their brains open with MK Ultra so that they can control them, and part of that is through sodomizing them. And I also, you know, once again, I'm going to point out that like Sodom was a problem because Sodom and Gomorrah were a problem because they were sexually depraved, not because they were quote-unquote homosexuals, which I don't even feel like it ever actually said that, but because they were rapists and also pedophiles. But anyway, mainly because they were rapists. You know who stole Pam Anderson's tape from her house? ? An agent. Spirits are singing Secret Agent Man. And they're like, you basically agreed to it when you signed up for this. Now you are being used in a mass ritual or spell casting to indoctrinate a story, timeline, thread into the collective consciousness, which is then reinforced with entertainment media. So they crack people's brains with MKU, and then they pour it into it an elixir of death, which is the media we consume. They'll do this to your chakra system. So they'll crack open your crown chakra. But the sodomy, the rape, the grape, the essay, that they do using, that's to crack open your root chakra. And honestly, if you've already experienced that, which so many people have already in your sacral chakra, maybe your heart chakra, you've already experienced all types of stuff like that, then it's a lot easier to crack your crown chakra. And anyway, most people already have a very brittle, dry chakra system because of the indoctrination. And because they're not connected to the fountain of life anymore. They're not connected to the living waters. This is what I'm talking about when I'm saying like these vampires, it's because they have no soul. They're not alive. They're not living. They're not connected to the living waters. And how do you connect to the living waters? You connect to the living waters through your star, the star that gives you life. And for us here on Earth, it is the sun. It's the sun. And then the great central sun is the next one. That's the mother of the sun. And that's connected to some greater sun, you know, or really, let's say, to the light realms. But you got to be connected, and you have to be in alignment to be connected. And the further that you go away from, I guess, the great central sun, like the lower that you go in terms of, yeah, I guess it's like that would be like Christ is the sun, and the great central sun is maybe like Barbella, or yeah, like the mother principle. But the further that you go down the mortal coil, the further that you get away. And that's why, like, as you take on more density, things become harder. Like the challenges become harder because you're so dense, you know what I mean? In density, that's where the karma is stored, the codes. Okay, that's why the Akashic records are stored in the sun. I'm not going to explain that now, but I might share my notes on that in my newsletter, the mysteries. It's the premium tier of my Substack newsletter, which is called the channel. The premium tier is called the mysteries. It's $11.11 a month, and you're more than welcome to sign up for it. Anyway, the next point that I want to make is that they become disconnected from the great central sun, which is the fountain of life. That is where life flows from, to us, and they are not connected to that because they are demonic, they're devils. And so look at this, these two, they're in the sunlight of the spirit, they're glowing in love. Merkaba integration, heart chakra open in full bloom. These are like bastardized false twin relationships, these are. And what I'm picking up with this is because they've fallen from grace, because over the past however many years they have misused their authority. It's like Kendrick says, like, I remember you were misusing your influence. I remember you were conflicted, misusing your influence. And he says that is a part at the end of 𝗪𝗧𝘗, where he says stop. And if you are somebody who like is really, you like have listened to that album a lot, you'll recognize like stop. I remember you, and then it, like the next lyrics are, I remember you was conflicted, misusing your influence. And that's how you know that he's talking about Drake. He's saying that about Drake. But so with this King of Pentacles card, like, it is standing out to me because like they got power and they abused it, and the ways that they came about having that power in and of itself was wrong. Okay, it was illegitimate. And so they have all these false pairings, these messed up matches, that they have people like in spiritual marriage contracts being like sold to entities, being sold to demons, being sold to like false to fallen ones, or even like being melded, like having the fallen one melded to your spirit. And that's what happened to Diddy, is that he yeah, let me get into this and I'll come back to the reading. He was, first of all, his DNA, what I picked up was like, quote unquote, jungle Gola. Gola is a tribe in West Africa, and it's what tribe he's descended from. And so he is somebody who was marked. You have to understand that they didn't just take any old, people when they went to do transatlantic slavery. They specifically took people who were like princes and princesses of tribes and chiefs and stuff. And this is why like people will be like, well, you know, Africans sold us, and it's like, that was not the case most of the time. So just shut the fuck up already. You don't even know what you're talking about when you say that shit. Like, that was not the case most of the time. In the times that it was actually the case, like, it's because they had some sort of rivalry going on, or they were simply jealous. You know what I mean? They were jealous. And all of this comes down to envy and jealousy, greed, and that whole insanity, because that is the basis of like Iblis's problem. I feel like 𝗂𝗪's problem is really insolence and being holier than thou, an air of superiority, and just arrogance. Yeah, arrogance underlies all of this, and arrogance is like indicative of having like overinflated ego and just like not being right size and like lacking humility. And I do think that jealousy like has to do with that. Anyway, the point is, they were taking people of specific bloodlines for a reason. They were taking them for a reason. Okay? Because this all has to do with the vampirism. I'm not going to get too deep into this right now because I just don't have the time, if I'm being honest. This is like way bigger than something that I can talk about like right now. And this is stuff that I've been downloading for a long time. But like, they took them and they forced them to do heinous stuff. And some of these, like the orchestrators, the architects of this system, a lot of them were vampires or vampire descendants, whether they knew it or not. And what I'm saying is, like, you're already in the 3D after you were maybe, like, if you were a seraphim, let's say, maybe you were up, like, and let's say that there's 9 dimensions before you get to the light realms, right? Which is not necessarily true, but we'll say that because, no, let's say 12. Let's say 12 dimensions because there's 1, 2, 3, that's like the 3D, and then you have like those 3 tiers that we talked about of angelology. And they are like, they're up at the 9th dimension, or no, they're at the 12th dimension. Then they get, there's 13, but we can't get up to 13 if you're an angel. 13 is God's territory. They're up at 12. And imagine that you're just talking smack, like, oh, I'm so good, I'm so powerful, like I could go down to the 3D and I would not experience what they're experiencing down there. So then you go down to the 3D. No, and then you make a deal with God. This is 𝗂𝗄𝗄𝗃. You make a deal with God and you're like, oh, I'm going to go down there and I'm not going to fall prey to temptation. I'm not going to get stuck in samsara and the karmic cycle. And you go down there and you do the worst shit that you could possibly do. First of all, going from like 12th dimension to 30th dimension, like that is, you've taken on like 9 layers. You've taken on 9 layers of density. Okay, that's just first of all. And all of the karma that is associated with those 9 layers of density. Now you have to come to understand, comprehend, and transmute. You're going to have to shadow work all of that to clarify yourself, to get back to yourself. You're going to have to transmute all of that to get back to yourself. And then add on top of that, now you're doing stuff in the 3D too. You're taking actions that like is added to your karmic debt, right? So, you know, already it's like super, super dense and like heavy to come down to like the 3D from that higher consciousness, and that's already bad enough. But then like you're like a god unto these beings that they've only gotten to 3D consciousness. They're just getting past 2nd dimensional consciousness. They just got to 3D consciousness, and they have to like figure out what the hell they're doing on this level of the game. And because of that, you're down there and you have power. You're supposed to be a watcher. You're supposed to be helping them, guiding them, you know, ushering them forward, being of support, being of service. But instead, you decide that you're going to abuse your power and abuse your influence and abuse the knowledge, the sacred knowledge that you carry within you, this esoteric, occult knowledge. It's hidden. from them because they don't have access to those higher realms, those higher dimensions. They're not ever going to be able to, doesn't matter if you try to explain it to them, they're not going to be able to comprehend it until they comprehend it. Okay, they're going to have to figure it out on their own. So you get down there and they create these systems and structures of exploitation because they understand that they're like gods down there. They didn't want to be like, they wanted to be gods. They wanted to make the decisions. They wanted to make the rules up above, but they couldn't. They wanted to be like God, which is understandable. But because they wanted to be like God, that's why they got themselves into trouble, because they lacked humility enough to just admit and understand that they aren't. They're not. Period. Anyway, so I don't know why I was talking about that, but yeah, these beings, they want access to like certain powers that, like, you know, oh yeah, they fall further from the sun. So you're already falling further from where your connection is. Even going down from 12 to 11, that's falling. But that's a choice to descend down the mortal coil. Not fallen as in like you got put down, but like choosing. This is why it's a sacrifice for the bodhisattva to go back or to stay in a dimensional incarnation in order to be of service. That is a sacrifice because it is painful compared to the other experience that you get to have in higher dimensions where you are free and you don't have to deal with the laws of the quantum universe. You know what I mean? Or anyways, the manifest, you don't have to deal with these rules that people deal with down here, and density. But so, yeah, in the 3D. So you're already less connected than ever before, and that is extremely painful. That's why a lot of you experience depression and like wanting to go home and feeling like empty and like feeling a void, is because you are less connected. But that means that you have to do everything in your power constantly to pursue a connection to the most high divine creator. You have to do everything in your power constantly to make sure that you're filling yourself up, because otherwise you are going to become drained. And this is the thing, it's like you don't even you know, we all become in that way to some extent, you know. We're just lower. I'm not going to say we all become soulless, but we definitely have to like work to not get like sucked into the magnetism of gravity, of density, because we're really low, and we're really close to the 0 point. Of the finite, of the nothing, versus the all, which is that is the mother, not the finite. The finite is not the mother. The singularity is oneness with all, unity. But this is what they want you to think, is that the singularity is like individuality, and like it's just like this capitalistic individuality. But that's not true. But so the Lovers in reverse, yeah, the vampires. So essentially these people, they just you know, if they are fallen from 3D to 2D, that's the next thing, is like you've done fucked up so badly that you get knocked down to 2D. And that's really bad, because now you can't even incarnate. You can't even be in the 3D. And you have to, yeah, like magnetism is the only thing that works for you. You have to like manipulate in order to have any impact on the 3D. they have to manipulate people in the unseen. They have to manipulate in the unseen in order to get people to be low vibrational enough to latch onto them and to connect to them, or to do their bidding elsewise. Low vibrational enough to communicate with them, to be even in proximity to them, and that's why, like, it's a globally devolving society and culture and cycle. But more to the point, if a being that is like, if you're a 3D human being and you have spiritually had a vampiric succubus energy grafted to your soul, they're eating your soul, they're eating your light, your power, your divine spark, your dewdrop of divinity, which is the Sophia that is in all of us, wisdom, the creatrix, life itself that exists in all of us. They're eating it because they don't have that themselves. They're not alive. They don't have that themselves, and they're not connected the way that they need to be. And so that's why these predators out here, who are vessels, who either are possessed by or grafted to these two-dimensional like beings, they can't stop. They're addicted to causing harm, like serial killers or like serial rapists. They never just take one victim. They always have to go and they victimize multiple people. That's always how it goes every single time. Because they need to keep feeding and feeding and feeding. And a lot of these are attached to the demon 𝗪𝗪𝘁, who is the one who contracted out, they contracted out a lot of their demonic horde. And that's the eater. That's the eater. So that's what I have to say about that. And so, you know, I would say if you've never read Blue Bloods, this young adult vampire fiction that I used to read in like middle and high school, I would recommend you to read that, because I think that will like be clarifying. But essentially, so when angels come down to earth, unfortunately, they get stuck, you know, in these forms. But if they choose to like rebel or things like this, then, well, that's when they get stuck, because you don't necessarily get stuck. If you have karma that keeps you stuck in samsara, then you do get stuck. But like, they choose to rebel, then that is in and of itself, you know, gonna be karma, like rebelling, like, oh, here's a rebellion, I'm lactose intolerant, I'm gonna drink milk anyway. That is in and of itself a rebellion. But then these bigger rebellions where like you literally betrayed your duty, you literally betrayed your mission, you did the opposite of what you were supposed to do as a being of service, like teaching human beings war, that in and of itself. And that's why they have to make these kinds of sacrifices where it's like, oh, like, you know, child sacrifices and like sex and stuff like that. It's because that is the energy that being wants. They want that red energy, they want that innocence energy, because they don't have that. And that's what life is. That's the most pure expression of life. Creativity, whimsy, joy, you know, that is what they want. and they eat that, and then they spit out the bones, and they suck the marrow out of it. But anyway, that's why they demand those kinds of sacrifices, is because they that's life itself, and they want that creative ability, because they can't create anything, and they're in pain. Actually, they're in pain. They're suffering constantly, and that's why they're just like, give me more, give me more, give me more, give me all of it. They're suffering. It's like you're suffering because of your actions, and now you're doing even worse. So you're going to just perpetuate your suffering. That's what they've done. And so, yeah, so certain lineages are, I mean, I think I've talked about like family gods and rank and stuff, but I would encourage you to actually go watch from my teacher 𝗂𝗲𝗲𝗽, his videos on rank and family gods and things like that. But the idea is that we are descended from our family gods. Our family gods are our ancestors. Not, that doesn't mean like, oh, my grandfather's my god. Like, no, that's not what I mean. Like, your family god started your lineage. And all of these different deities, essentially you know, if you have fallen DNA because your family god is a fallen one, all the descendants of that all the descendants from that lineage, from that point forward, they're going to they have that fallen DNA 7 generations forward. So one hopes that after 7 generations, somebody, like, the pollution is not so much, so that like an earth angel, a being of light, can manifest into the bloodline and like purify it. One hopes, but it doesn't always happen that way, especially because of 551155 on the timer or on the screen. It doesn't always happen that way, but basically so that's what I mean by vampire descendants. If you are descended from a fallen one, you are a vampire descendant, because they are vampires. They drink blood, yes, but it's life force. Drinking blood is the manifestation, the physical manifestation of the life force. That's why it's represented as water, because water is also what? Spirit and light. It's all life force. They don't have that. So this is the idea of having to drink blood, which they do that because some of them have to, because like the black hole, the depravity is so much that they have to, otherwise they can't function. They become exhausted. But also, like, you know, people who are energy vampires, just by virtue of being, that's just how they are. You know what I mean? They are usually vampire descendants, sucking up people's energy because they are a hungry ghost. But then also, yeah, usually you'll see in these families like really, really aggressive domination paradigms. And you'll see a lot of like SA and CSA abuse, like that kind of stuff in those families a lot. And just like myriad like types of abuse. These are very cult-like families. And like usually there'll also be a lot of like religious dogma, quite honestly. And you'll know that these people are like very ritualistic behaviors and like stuff like that. These people are usually vampire descendants, and those are the families where a lot of like SRA happens. And you'll think, oh, but they're Catholic. Oh, but they're like Methodist. Doesn't fucking matter. Well, that's the worst, honestly. That's even worse. Because y'all have heard me talk about how, like, that is literally a vampiric cult. I've talked about it. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with, like, loving Christ, but there is something very, very wrong with the institution. And just go to the Vatican and tell me that there's not. You cannot tell. Like, that shit is dark, bro. It's so low vibrational. It's so dense. Like, you can feel it coming off of it in waves, bro. So that's what I have to say about that. But so this DNA, yeah, so basically the DNA that they're specifically looking for to be able to graft fallen ones to incarnate beings. They're looking for people who are very spiritually powerful, vessels that can hold that much like energy and that much power that can ground it, which is usually SSA DNA. No shade, it's just what it is. It's just true. And also to be able to like not be driven crazy by the codes that they have, because you know, you can have an ancestral team that like, you just have the codes that like are appropriate for, that they can bind themselves to, let's say, and graft themselves to those codes, and you may be able to handle it better than someone else, because like there's still strong magics close in the DNA, and you know, you have a body that can handle that much energy. It's also why a lot of people who are not even like that kind of, but like when people are going through an ascension, they might experience like a manic depressive episode because they swing upwards and they are not grounded. They don't know how to be grounded, because honestly the light codes are too much for them, and it like fries everything, you know, and they're not grounded enough to be able to handle that much electricity. So there are a lot of different things that have to do with it. It has to do with culture, and it literally does have to do with like your biophysical makeup, and that is the 𝗂𝗪, the melanin. It just is what it is. In certain traditions, you know, I would say that the next that I would say are like druid descendants, because their magics, like their practice, they're still earth integrated. One, that's another thing, is one still being earth integrated, and two, or like three, they're still earth integrated, and their magics, like they protected their DNA and the magics. And also because a lot of the time their ancestors are still working in the ethers to help them, whereas a lot of people who have colonizer DNA, their ancestors they ain't shit. They're not prepared for the afterlife, and they can't do nothing for you, and they're also starving and poor in the afterlife because y'all don't feed them, y'all don't take care of your ancestors, because you're so afraid that that's like evil. And you know, that's the whole point. This is what I'm trying to iterate, like that all of that is on purpose. None of that is by accident. So I'm just plugging my charger in. Alright, I'm going to try to wrap this up because although there's still so much more to talk about, but don't want it to be too long, and I do still have stuff to do. So, oh my gosh. There's just so much to explain. I wish that I had like made these videos with all this information sooner, but I'm just giving the information when I'm meant to. Anyway, so yeah, those are the things that like you need to consider. And this is honestly a big part of why it's so important to be earth integrated, and why like so many people, like, because if you're not, then you're just setting yourself up for failure and making yourself a willing victim and open, like, this is like opening a door and inviting entities to come and to enter. And honestly, like, they can't enter unless you allow them to. It's just like they show in the movies, like, you invite them in, don't invite them in. You know what I mean? Do not invite them in. Don't, you know, accidental consent is real. You have to continue to revoke and declare sovereignty. Remove cords, revoke access, and declare sovereignty. That's the most important thing. Seriously, if you don't have any money to do cleansing or whatever, although you can just do that in the shower. You don't have money to work with an exorcist. You don't have money, like, you don't know how to do this. You don't know how to do that. Those are the most important things that you can do. Revoke access, reclaim your power, and call your energy back to you. Remove cords, and honestly live a sovereign life. Like, make intentional choices. That's it. That makes it so much easier, right? But so yeah, let's so that's why Diddy is they were looking for someone like him, because he comes from a lineage of powerful magics. Unfortunately, like, this is a very dense magic. You can get a lot of dense karma, and that can actually be wealth for you. That can actually be wealth if you get like a lot of dense karma, if you come from a lineage. If you come from a lineage of master co-creators, master alchemists, and if you get a lot of dense energy, dense karma, because you can transmute that into power, into gold. You transmute it into wisdom, and you just transmute your life to be better if you're born in density. But you can also just abuse those magics. My throat chakra's like going crazy right now. They really don't want me to talk about this. This is the thing though, like, this is the thing, is like, some of us have heard like, oh, you have like, you're so wealthy, and then in the spirit world, and then you're like, but I don't see any of that wealth. We'll store up your wealth in heaven, or in the kingdom of heaven, kingdom of God, whatever they say. Because if you, wisdom is the true wealth. And if you have been handed down wisdom over the course of time, from your ancestors who train you and stuff like that, and then you have a lot of like dense energy that you inherit, and we all do, especially if you come down from higher dimensions, and you can transmute that into gold, and then you have a lot of riches and wealth. They don't know that because they're stupid. They don't know that because they're like arrogant, and they're checked out, and they don't understand. They don't really understand anything, if we're being honest. They're so dumb. It's like crazy. But yeah, so he's 𝗔𝗪𝗪𝗪. He had the DNA. This is true for Travis Scott as well, and I do believe that both of these people were incarnated in quote unquote ancient Egypt. They were in Kemet, and they, in the Atlantis Empire, it was like Kemet, I believe, and the Mayan Empire, I think, and maybe somewhere else, but basically like they had these like different priesthoods, and it wasn't necessarily like, oh, this is Atlantis. It's like you knew spiritually, like on a higher vibration, people knew that this was like part of this empire. And it was like, because it is really ideological and cultural, spiritual and ideological before anything else, and that creates the culture. And so they operated from like this Atlantis spirituality and culture. And then when Atlantis fell, it's not necessarily that it was like it fell into the water. It fell like it was a fallen society. Like they became evil because of corruption. And the priest kings, because they did have priest kings, the priest kings became corrupt. Some of them agreed to corruption that they were offered by off-worlders to betray everyone else. They were priest kings and not priestess queens, because the high priestesses were more valuable than the men. And they knew that, and some of the men didn't like that because they were jealous. And that's why a lot of them, I think that a lot of their karma is to be, going through like patriarchy, I guess. But anyway, so the off-worlders, they were able to be convinced by the off-worlders. I mean, it could have been 𝗂𝗪𝗂𝗪, it could have been whatever. That's not something that we're going to get too deep into today, because I feel like there's like just so much more important stuff that I want to get to for this intergalactic crystal ball. But like they basically they were able to be convinced to betray the divine feminine and to betray the divine feminine and to betray the collective in order to have material abundance and material power. And they had already been driven crazy with lust, jealousy, envy, greed, which I think was on purpose. And so this is the parallel of Adam attacking Lilith and trying to SA her, and her running away. And I would say that that is essentially like what happened. Is like when this started happening, this is what brought about the fall of Atlantis, and this is what ended the golden age. Because honestly, Atlantis came out of Lemuria. It was just like a more, I guess, like technologically advanced Lemuria. And yeah, basically when they started falling, then there was the flood. There was like the flooding that was like, that actually very literally did happen. But I actually think that it might have to do with like when we talk about rain and flood and stuff, was that like something to do with the sun and light codes and things like that? Or was it like what it was written in the book of Enoch? I don't know. I'm gonna do some scrying about that and meditation on that, and I will talk about that in the newsletter. So like I said, the link to the newsletter is in the description box, and I would invite you to follow or to subscribe if you want to know more about that. But that's what I'm downloading, is like that's why the fallen ones, that's how Atlantis fell, and that's why they experienced what they experienced, which was like a flood. And before, what I'm picking up is like we used to be able to, travel through portals to come to Earth. And I'm downloading this. We used to be able to come to Earth, but then the portals portals got closed. They got flooded. They were not allowed to do that anymore because it was not safe. But unfortunately, who was left on the planet were the evil ones who'd already been indoctrinated. They are the ones actually who shut it down. But anyway, so these are dragon descendants because the seraphim, like I said, are dragons. And that's why you have Yahweh is a dragon, 𝗂𝗫𝗁, Kuan, you know, all of these dragons all over the world. They're seraphim tier, and some of them are not very good, and some of them are, because they're not the most high divine creator, who is all loving and all knowing, omnipotent and omniscient. That's not them. They have feelings and thoughts and shit like that. And it might be more complex and different than what we experience, but it is what it is. Anyway, so these beings, they were kin, but then there was the betrayal. And the betrayal sects, they did happen in the Mayan Empire, and they did happen as well in the Comitian Empire, and that is when, you know, there's a great migration from Kemet down to the sub-Saharan African coast, the Gold Coast, and that's where the most powerful families that chose not to be absorbed, that's where they went. And they were from Orion, so there's the good dragons from Orion, and also Mintakans are from Orion, the light workers. But then there are also the bad dragons. And that's why when they talk about like the Nagas, so this is Nagas, they're like, oh, serpent, like DNA energy, serpents, da-da-da-da-da. Some are bad, some are good. You can't lump all of them in together. And you have to be discerning because, like I said, some are bad, some are good. These are families. This is a civil war. They're related to one another. Brother against brother. Sister against sister. Brother against sister. Sister against brother. That whole shebang. So I'm going to talk about now I'm going to get back into reading. Okay, so the elixir of death, which is the media that we consume. This elixir of death, yeah, I mean, they put it into your ethers, your subconscious. Okay, don't we talk about consciousness as a sea? So they pour that elixir of death, which is denigrating, devolving, and it makes you a vessel. You become an optimal vessel for them, and they'll just use you until they don't need you anymore, and then they'll discard you. And it integrates with your brain and makes you sick, so you think all this stuff is normal. It warps your mind and separates your body from your spirit, just like when you're watching like Nickelodeon and like Disney Channel and stuff, and you see shit like that weird pornographic stuff that groomed children. Children were literally being groomed by these networks. And we just thought that that was normal. We thought that there was nothing wrong with it. I didn't actually. I really hated those channels, but I hated those shows so fucking much, dude. Like, I could not stand that shit. So I didn't think that that was normal. I thought it was so stupid, and like I was not into it. But a lot of people did think that it was normal, and they were buying into it. Granted, I am also a medium with a relationship to my angels, ancestors, and guides would not allow me to watch that shit. They kept me far away from that stuff. And luckily for me, like, I didn't have a normal, you know, childhood or youth, but that's because, like, what my parents were allowing me to do, my grandparents as my ancestors would not allow me to do. My ancestors, my great gods, guides, and ancient ancestors would not allow me to, like, dirty myself spiritually that way. Then when I developed my own autonomy and I got to a certain age and I could make my own decisions, that's when I started getting dirtied up. But honestly, like, I had to go through that in order to do the real transmutational work. Otherwise, I wouldn't have the wealth and the ability to do what I do. I would have never gotten, like, I would have never spiritually have triumphed, you know, over the forces of death, destruction, and disaster. My throat chakra is going crazy right now. I think that cat might be going crazy out there. I'm not gonna worry about that though. Anyway, so these people who are descended from these dragon lineages, like, if you're a direct descendant of Yahweh, if you're a direct descendant of 𝗂𝗪, if you're a direct descendant of Kuan Yin, you know what I mean? Like, if you are a direct descendant of all of these beings, like, you are of their spiritual lineage, and, like, there are certain magics that your line does that not necessarily the other lines do, or the other lineages do. And so, okay, so I forget what I was talking about, but yeah, so dueling dragons is always what I hear, and it's basically essentially like the fallen versus the ones who are still you know, of service to the light, the non-believers, Shaitan, versus those who are still in service to the light. And they are family, and within these different lineages, like, we incarnate to fight this war. And some people incarnated in the lineages that are, you know, vampiric and fallen in order to restore the bloodline and to transmute this energy and put a stop to it, whereas, like, others incarnated in, like, less chaotic families, or even, like, lower families. But anyway, the point is, this person, Diddy, he's descended from, like, those lineages, Travis Scott too, and so they made these pacts. In their past lives, is what I picked up, is that they made these, like, pacts, swore these oaths in the temples in ancient Kemet, in the pyramids, to do this. And then they did, like, some sort of ceremony which involved a chalice and drinking from the cup. Maybe this is the elixir of death, that allowed these forces to bind to them. And so over time, he probably already knew that he was special. He probably already knew that he was different, and that's why he was, like, so egomaniacal and, like, walking down this path of being evil and bad and doing depraved shit and doing whatever he wanted to do to get ahead. And because of this is what made him an appealing candidate, one might say. And as this quote-unquote appealing candidate, you know, he showed promise that he would be willing to, you know, be be the vessel for this. And so when he was offered to have 𝗂𝗄𝗄𝗃 grafted to him, he was willing to do it. I need to do more clarification about that, but that's essentially what I picked up. And that's why he's basically not even there, because all of his light has been drained from him, and that's why he has to drain everybody else's light and do all of this stuff, is because that's how he feeds the demon. And he gets the power, and he does that, but he is still working for other people. Clive Davis, for instance. LG, for instance. I had so much more to say, but this is like this is a lot of information, so I'm gonna have to make a part 2, because I definitely wanted to speak about Ashton Kutcher and Rob Kardashian Sr., who like is like, oh my god, zombie, like occult, satanic, so demonic, so evil, and long lineage of being like evil. If you think that it was just Chris, it's not just Chris. Like, both of them were evil like this, and I picked up that that's why Rob hated them. And yeah, so let me finish reading this. So it integrates with your brain, makes you sick, warps your mind, and separates your body from your spirit. So then, like, that's the cognitive dissonance, and that allows for these lower vibrational entities to come in. In this way, you are being controlled. Then, if you are trying to make it up the ladder, they act out abuse and exploitation narratives that you have been programmed to be in. These scenes are meant to extract energy from you. What spirits are saying is, but if you're sovereign, you can control what kind of emotional energy you have at all times, so you don't necessarily have to care about what they're doing. However, because it is outside of integrity, it still lowers your frequency, because as above, so below, as within, so without. Eventually, you lose your humanity by not having human emotions to human situations, and thus become a depraved reptilian, because you're operating solely from your reptilian brain, your basal ganglia. We talked about that in the mysteries a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago. Especially the people who are doing gay for pay stuff tend to fall into this category. This is a desecration of sex magics, not because it is like homoerotic, but because it is because of the intention behind it. And usually these people are willing to do this kind of stuff because they're already programmed from childhood SA. And they don't want people to know that that's what they're into, but then they find other people who are into it and they're willing to do it, with those people, because they're all operating from these lies of like, oh, like, it's just because of like that we're just doing that because of like for business, or like, we're just doing it because like that's what we all have to do to get ahead. It's just like Rodney Jenkins, I don't know, Lil Rod, that's what he said in his testimony, like in his case against Diddy. That's what he said. Oh, everybody does it, and like that's why they finally found a safe place to be able to do that stuff. And if it gets them ahead, then hell yeah. And I'm not just talking about like being gay, because that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like, the depraved stuff, like like harming children, and yeah, also being gay. But they have a problem with that, even though it's not a problem. You may hear some people say it doesn't work because it's a bastardization, but yes, it does. It works to feed 𝗪𝗪𝘁. By inverting the energy, it drains the universe manifest. However, ultimately it doesn't matter, because the true world will never fall, and balance will come into being all the time, always. So these like false covenants that were made, they are falling to pieces now. These false covenants, they tried to they really did everything that they could against the chosen collective specifically. against the chosen collective specifically. They've been doing so much magics against the chosen. Katy Perry was a victim of kitten programming. Her brain couldn't take all the stuff she went through. Assault spirit is saying torture, emotional abuse, withholding of money. I do feel like drugs may have been involved, but nothing crazy. They want to make it clear that she isn't this way because of drugs, but because of having been raped and abused, which turned her to drinking and smoking weed, apparently. But also definitely cocaine. And so sometimes she glitches out, but because she's also an earth angel, this especially happens when she's receiving light codes because her brain cannot handle the level of stuff she's downloading. And Spirit is confirming that part of this is because of the lack of melanin in her brain. And this is something that I already explained just now. And so earth angels like naturally come from the 4D. And that's why you have to embody Christ consciousness 4D so that like you can be okay. Like that's the only way that if you're an earth angel that you can be okay. In the 3D, I'm hearing repository. Her DNA doesn't have the repository of information to be able to heal itself. And it's not even necessarily because she's not SSA descent, but there are only a few bloodlines that had the capability to do so. Some are Mayan, and some are SSA, and some are Inuit, and some are of the Druid descendants. However, she's not one of those. She was born into a reptilian family, and they don't have those codes, period. And that's what happens when you are born into a karmic family. But yeah, so dragon descendants. It's not quote-unquote bad to have reptilian DNA because all humans do. That's why it's called the reptilian brain. Literally, look it up on Psychology Today. It just means they're unevolved, and she is way higher vibrational re-consciousness and always will be. And so she really didn't stand much of a chance to begin with. They will never have the same level of consciousness as her because they literally cannot, not in this lifetime anyway. But they'll never be at the same level as her unless she stays stuck and they progress, which is not really likely. That's by virtue of their progress and development and their literal brains. It's also not bad to be of these bloodlines because trust when I say many of them are infested with demons and living demonic lives. The point is, everybody has the potential for this within them. By changing your lifestyle and actions, you can change your DNA to be more like these mandate of heaven bloodlines. However, I must warn you, there are no shortcuts and there is no stopping. Should you embark upon this journey, you must be brave of heart and sovereign of mind. You must be willing to go deep within the crevices of your psyche and face your fears, transcending the self and expanding in the self. It is not easy, it is painful, it is difficult, and oftentimes it is ugly. But it is the most rewarding experience you can ever have. It is liberation, it is moksha. What did I just say? And that's when I started downloading all that stuff about Diddy. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to say about that. That's really all that I can say. The information that I wanted to share, it's a lot of information right there. I did also want to get a little information. So Ashton Kutcher is like best friends with Diddy. They're like so close. And he runs a child trafficking organization, but then he also is like really good friends with Danny Masterson, who like went to jail for SA, and he wrote a character letter for him. Fallen ones, inverted star, that's a black hole, dead star. Yeah, I get the sense that these people are like also potentially like, yeah, it's not that they're reincarnated, it's that they are just like, they're in service to a dead star, an inverted star, fallen one. Yeah. They don't have the mandate of heaven. Those bloodlines had it before, and that's why they were approached by those off-worlders that approached them, because they had it before. But then they lost. Now they didn't lose it necessarily. They don't have it anymore. They don't automatically have it. It's like some people have it and some people don't. With justice is coming in, these people, they're falling, they are fallen, and they are losing all of their prosperity, all of their wealth, all of their abundance. They're losing all of that, and they are going straight to hell. And some of them, they're gonna live to suffer, you know what I mean? And when they die, they're going to be, they're not even gonna be in the 3D again, they're gonna be in the 2D. Some of them, that's how bad it is, what they did. With Danny Masterson. Yeah, so I definitely think that Ashton Kutcher is actually, like, definitely a major player in this human trafficking ring. 100%. I believe that he is. I believe that he's using his organization to get access to victims and to help perpetuate, because a lot of nonprofits, NGOs, you know, a lot of NGOs and a lot of diplomats, they're involved in this stuff, and that's facts. That's stuff I learned in sociology. It's stuff that I've seen in my own country. Like, I took sociology at the university level in an accredited institution. I went to Hunter College. I studied with Colin Ashley for a year. And it was like phenomenal, pivotal experience for me. So this isn't something that I'm like, oh, I just think that happened. No, like, I've watched documentaries about it. That happens all the time, and I definitely believe that he's part of it. What I also believe is that, like, they put, like, when they say roots, like, that's like putting magic in the ground and stuff, and that is what you do in Alpha or Ifa. Some of them do that, not everybody. This justice is coming in swiftly now. They're falling. They're like, it's just like I said, the initial collapse of Atlantis. That's what's happening right now. It's being flooded out. This is the future. It's being flooded out. Okay, what's happening is the roots that they put in the ground to do this magic, the portals that they open, all this shit is mainly like what they did to the earth in order to evoke the kind of magic that they needed to in order to, like, create this hell on earth, because earth is like, it is overrun with demonic entities and shaitan. It is overrun, period. It really reminds me of that movie by Jordan Peele, Us, I think is what it was called. But that, what they needed to do, that's all being flooded, and that's what's happening with these hurricanes. I know it's a travesty, really, it like breaks my fucking heart, seriously. But, you know, people were like, oh, they're using the weather system, the machines. HAARP is what they're talking about. They're using HAARP, but I don't even know if they know about HAARP. They're using HAARP in order to, it's the end for them. It's the end for them. They don't even, yeah. And people are not, like, the revolution is not going to be televised. I mean, it is being televised, but not in the way that you think. They think that they're using HAARP to, like, get rid of the evidence of the shit that they were doing. That's not the case. They lived at those places so that they could maintain the roots. The roots are what's getting, like, purged out and washed out of the ground. The magic is what's being brought, like, washed out of the ground and brought down. Because this is the return of the divine feminine. You can't have the divine light feminine without the divine dark feminine. And that's what's happening. They're not going to be able to do this shit anymore. Because she's coming into union. No small talk. Everything that they took away is about to come back to us. Chosen One Collective. All right. I love you all truly and deeply. I think that that's as much as I can really do today. Because I've actually been doing this for a long time. I will make a specific video about, like, these different topics that I touched on. Do my best to do that, but, like, I'm an oracle. I work for the Most High. I don't just do things because, like, it would be better content creation for my platform. Like, I've tried, I can't, I work for God. I can't do that. So, but I do want to say that this is for those that have been robbed by these people, those who, like, and not by these covens, and also the powers and principalities. It's over. You're getting back everything they took and more. You might think that nothing can make up for this, but it can. That it was amateur hour, amateur at the fucking Apollo, okay? Like, higher ranking beings have incarnated on Earth in order to put an end to this. And this victory that we're coming into, they thought that they were going to be celebrating because they're arrogant fools. They thought that they were really going to be able to steal from you, from God's chosen ones. That's crazy to me. But healing is coming, and all you really need to do is continue healing yourself. That's what's most important. Continue healing yourself. Continue healing your trauma. If people are not trauma informed, if people are not emotionally mature, if people are not sovereign people, and they are incapable of having interdependent relationships, it's a done deal. It's a wrap. It's over for them, okay? I love you all truly and deeply, so much. I hope that this was helpful information. I know this is confirmation for a lot of folks out there. Please do not use any, like, now let's say this is for entertainment purposes only. The reality of the situation is I don't know these people in person, so I'm just reading energy. Don't go around doing crazy shit because, oh, Vie Darling said this. No, I didn't. Don't go around causing harm to anybody. None of that stuff. Use your own discernment. If this is not something that you feel like you vibe with, that's fine. If it is, then great. But, you know, whatever. That all being said, this is the end of this intergalactic crystal ball. I guess, I don't know if I want to call it part 1 because I do want to revisit this, but it's just like there's so much to talk about what's going on and stuff that's been revealed to me, and it's taken years. It's taken years. All I want to do is encourage you all to reclaim your sovereignty by being intentional in your decision making, in your co-creation of your reality, and don't let them win by by controlling you. That's how they win. That's how they manifest through you. Like I said, they're in the 2D. They cannot manifest on their own. They need you. So you need to realize how much more powerful you are. And if you're 3D, especially if you're higher than 3, you're an earth angel, you're like 𝗂𝗵𝗄𝗃, all that shit. Like, you are more powerful than them. Trust and believe. I'm not kidding. So please hear me when I say this. And just, you know, really do your best to respect and honor yourself. I love you all truly and deeply. Once again, if you want to book a session with me or self-sovereignty coaching, please go ahead and do so through my Etsy. I'm updating my prices this week. And if you need me for anything, if you need to talk about, like, if you need support in any kind of way, and if, like, you want to work out some sort of, like, payment plan or something like that, you can email me. Otherwise, what else? Anything else? Oh, yeah. Like, comment, subscribe, share with people that you think need to see this. Feel free to also, what did I say? Oh, follow on TikTok and Instagram, and also, what's the last thing? Like, comment, subscribe, follow on Instagram. Oh yeah, subscribe to my Substack. Woo! Okay. Peace.